We had a theorem for the way we'd work, a formula we'd written in the dark, an elegant equation, clean and true, a proof of me derived from proof of you. But theorems fade when the chalk is left in rain, and all that's left is where the proof had lain. Trace the ghost of numbers on the board, the faded theorem of what we'd explore. Logic I can no longer afford. Faded theorem, white on empty black, the proof of something I can't place. Tenderness. There is a kind of strength that's soft at its center, an iron tenderness that knows how to enter the hardest rooms without a weapon raised, without a war, without a fever phase. You've seen it in the people who have bled and came back warmer for the rust they shed. Not hard from fear, but strong from having known the specific weight of carrying alone and choosing still to carry and to own. Iron tenderness, forged from what was lost, a metal that remembers every frost. I carry it with open hands, not fists, in the warmth of everything that still exists. My father had it in his quiet way. He didn't speak his love in full display, but there was iron in the steadiness of hands that showed up through the emptiness of mornings when I didn't know I'd need the iron tenderness of someone free. Not hard from fear, but strong from having known the specific weight of carrying alone and choosing orbit drawing near and near, but never landing on the surface there. Just looping in the gravity's affair. The center is a thing I can't quite name. The charcoal orbit keeping me the same. Round and round the dark familiar pull, a gravity that keeps the orbit full. The charcoal circle, beautiful and cruel. Charcoal orbit drawing in the dark, a circling that leaves a sooty mark on everything I pass, on every round. The charcoal orbit, beautiful and bound. The center used to have a face, a form, a person or a grief or the warm pull of an identity I wore before the orbit became the core of who I was. The circle and not the ground. The charcoal orbit is the only sound. Down, 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 down. Round and round the dark familiar pull, a gravity that keeps the circuit full. The charcoal circle, beautiful and dull. Charcoal orbit drawing in the dark, a circling that leaves a sooty mark on everything I pass, on every round. The charcoal orbit, beautiful and bound. Charcoal orbit tracing through the night, a circling that marks the dark with light on everything I graze, on every pass. The charcoal orbit, etched in the glass. Tonight I let the orbit spiral out. I loosened gravity's familiar cloud and drifted past the center I'd called home, into the open dark, into the realm of space beyond the charcoal circle's edge. I step beyond the comfortable edge, no longer around the dark familiar pull. I broke the orbit, finally full of charcoal air, beyond the circle's rule. Charcoal orbit drawing in the dark, a circling that leaves a sooty mark on everything I pass, on every round. The charcoal orbit, beautiful and bound. What if the orbit was a preparation last charcoal orbit, drifting. I've been doing the math of the fading light, dividing what remains of the day by night, subtracting all the hours I spent in fear from the total sum of everything I've held dear. The numbers never balance at this hour, when the dust becomes the dividend of power. And I keep solving for the variable u, equation never quite comes through. The dusk arithmetic won't tell me what to do. Dusk arithmetic, calculating loss, the sum of what we gained against the cost. I add it up and always end the same, a beautiful remainder with no name. Was math I could control, a formula for filling up the hole. But feelings don't obey the ordered sign, they multiply past every boundary line. They carry and they borrow without rule, and dusk is where the math becomes the school. And I keep solving for the variable u, but the equation never quite comes through. The dusk arithmetic won't tell me what to do. Dusk arithmetic, calculating loss, the sum of what we gained against the cost. I add it up and always end the same, a beautiful remainder with no name. Dusk arithmetic, measuring the ache, the sum of everything we choose to take. I count it up and always find the same, an unnamed number, beautiful and strange. Counting, fading, dust, and numbers. Tonight I stop the calculation cold and let the dusk remain completely whole, and quantified, uncounted, undefined, the light that leaves no formula behind, just the slow subtraction of the blue into a dark that doesn't ask me to. I've stopped solving for the variable gone, the equation doesn't need to carry on. The dusk arithmetic becomes a song. Dusk arithmetic, calculating loss, the sum of what we gained against the cost. I add it up and always end the same, ease. Your voice has settled somewhere under these. The ordinary layers of my days pressed down into a geological phase. And sometimes in the quiet I can feel the echo pressing upward, almost real. A stratum of a voice that used to heal. Echo sediment deep below the floor, compressed into the bedrock of my core. I carry you in layers, not in air, a fossilized frequency down there. They say that sound can fossilize in stone, that certain caves preserve the words once known. I wonder if my body works the same, if I am just a cave that holds your name, carved into the limestone of my chest. Your echo stratified among the rest. And sometimes in the quiet I can feel the echo pressing upward, almost real. Stratum of a voice that used to hear. Echo sediment deep below the floor, compressed into the bedrock of my core. I carry you in layers, not in air, a fossilized frequency down there. Echo sediment settled in the stone, compressed into the bedrock that I own. I carry you in strata, dense and rare, a mineralized memory down there, down below, down, settling Tonight I press my ear against the ground and heard a muffled geological sound. Not words exactly, more like frequency. The echo of your voice reduced to me, to mineral, to element, to core. I am the ground that holds what came before. I feel it settle now beneath the floor, not pressing upward anymore, just resting, part of my bedrock core. Echo sediment deep below the floor, compressed into the bedrock Found the record in a box I made, a wax transmission from another day. The label faded, handwriting erased, except for one word I could almost trace. I set the needle down without a plan, and out came something neither mine nor man's. A frequency preserved in wax and time, a voice that isn't yours but close to mine. A transmission from the far side of the line. Wax transmission spinning on the dark groove, worn deep enough to leave a mark. I listen to the static between the songs. The message lives in where the silence belongs. The crackling isn't damage, it's the age of a transmission written on the page of someone's 3 a.m. long left behind. A feeling pressed in vinyl, sealed and signed, with all the weight of what they couldn't say, in language only in the wax's sway. A frequency preserved in wax and time, a voice that isn't yours but close to mine. A transmission from the far side of the line. Wax transmission spinning on the dark, a groove worn deep enough to leave a mark. I listen to the static between the songs. The message lives in where the silence belongs. Wax transmission turning in the night, a groove pressed deep enough to carry light. I listen to the static, ancient and long. The message always lived inside the song. Spinning, wax and dark, groove, 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 Tonight I press my own voice into wax. The 3 a.m. between the nights relapse. I sang the thing I couldn't say aloud. A wax transmission, quiet and not proud, but honest in the groove, preserved in spin. A message for whoever finds this in. A frequency I finally let mine, a voice that's fully and completely mine. A transmission from the inside of the line. Wax transmission spinning on the dark, a groove worn deep enough to leave a mark. I listen to the static between the songs. The message lives in where the silence belongs. What if the crackle is the voice? What if the imperfection is the choice? Not noise, but texture. Not damage, but proof of being. used to feel the cold. The city breeze and frequencies I never told. There's something in the wiring underneath my skin, a signal that I've carried since I don't know when. The streetlights bleed their orange on the wet concrete. I trace the cracks like maps of things I can't delete. And every hour past midnight feels the same, a hollow kind of quiet with no name. But I keep burning like a low blue flame. Neon residue on everything I touch, fading slow, dissolving, but it still means much. I don't need the daylight to remember who I was. Just the pulse, just the static, just because. Photographs are yellowed on the digital screen. I scroll through faces of a life that felt like a dream. Some nights I almost call a number I erase. Some mornings I wake up and can't recall my face. But here at 3 a.m. the frequency is clear. I'm tuned into the version of myself I kept in fear. And every hour past midnight feels the same, a hollow kind of quiet with no name. But I keep burning like a low blue flame. Neon residue on everything I touch, fading slow, dissolving, but it still means much. I don't need the daylight to remember who I was. Just the pulse, just the static, just because. Neon residue on every word I said, glowing in the silence of a long abandoned bed. I don't need the answers to remember what I was. Just the hum, just the current, just because. Still here, still here. Burning low, burning low. Don't fade, don't fade, don't maybe residue is all that we were meant to leave. A shimmer on the surface, a color on the sleeve. I stopped apologizing for the spaces that I need, for the silence that I water like a stubborn seed. The city never asked me why I'm still awake. It just glows and lets me grieve at my own pace. And every hour past midnight knows my name, a tender kind of quiet I can claim. I keep burning, I keep burning like a flame. Neon residue on everything I touch, fading slow, dissolving, but it still means much. I don't need the daylight to remember who I was. Just the pulse, just the static, just because. What if the residue is the point? What if the glow left behind is the whole story? to life, and where I thought I'd be without the strife. I've chased it north, I followed it through frost, a location that can only be found lost. And still I trace the parallel at night, a ghostly line that doesn't hold the light, but pulls me toward somewhere out of sight. Phantom latitude running through my mind, a destination I was meant to find, somewhere between the who I was and them. I navigate by stars that don't have names. The compass in my chest spins without north. It points to everything I've carried forth, the losses and the leavings and the nights I calculated wrong, the distances right. I've been at sea inside a landlocked life, charting phantom latitudes through strife. And still I trace the parallel at night, a ghostly line that doesn't hold the light, but pulls me toward somewhere out of sight. Phantom latitude running through my mind, a destination I was meant to find, somewhere between the who I was and them. I navigate by stars that don't have names. Phantom latitude shifting in the tide, a destination dissolving inside, somewhere between the grief and the return. I navigate by everything I learned. Somewhere, tonight I let the phantom coordinate go. I folded up the map of what I know, and in the blank white space of no location, I found the unnamed borderless sensation of being right exactly where I am. No phantom latitude, no diagram. I've stopped tracing the parallel at night, the ghostly line dissolved into the light, and I am somewhere feels right. Phantom latitude running through my mind, a destination I was meant to find, somewhere between the who I was and them. I navigate seconds before rain, a silver pressure building in my veins. The sky turns heavy, dense with what's unsaid. I carry it like weather in my head. The clouds are just a mirror of my chest, holding everything that finds no rest. And I can feel it pressing on the air, a storm that doesn't know exactly where to land. So it just hangs and makes me stare. Silver pressure filling up the room, quiet kind of gravity, a bloom of everything I've swallowed through the years, rising now like weather, not like tears. The barometer inside me has been wrong. It read the storms as something to prolong. I mistook the pressure for a purpose built. I wore the weight like armor made of guilt, but armor and a burden feel the same when neither one can shelter you from rain. And I can feel it pressing on the air, a storm that doesn't know exactly where to land. So it just hangs and makes me stare. Silver pressure filling up the room, a quiet kind of gravity, a bloom of everything I've swallowed through the years, rising now like weather, not like tears. Silver pressure thinning in the gray, a quiet kind of gravity gives way of everything I've carried through the years, releasing now like weather, not like fears. Pressure rising, silver, let go, let go, let Tonight the silver broke above the field, a quiet rain, a long anticipated yield. I stood beneath it with my palms face up, the pressure that I carried giving up. Not to the dark, not to a nameless pain, but to the soft and silver falling rain. I feel it lifting now across the air, a storm that found exactly where to land. And I was waiting right there. Silver pressure filling up the room, quiet kind of gravity, a bloom of everything I've swallowed through the Silver